We have a wonderful tradition here that the period that we are all together for the last time before Yom Kippur, we hear words of Hitorerut l'Teshuvah, words that will awaken us to do Teshuvah from our Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Harcsztark. Please give him the respect that he deserves. Thank you.
Here's how it happened. I had already been up for over an hour. It's Sunday morning. I'd had my coffee, read the headlines, and I had learned for a while. I figured I'd go with my boys to the 9 o'clock minyan. It was 8:45. Time to wake them up. I got the usual groan and then the turnover. I said to myself, I'll come back in about 5 minutes for round 2, as expected. At 8:50, another wake-up call, another groan, and another turnover. Now it's 8:55 and nobody's moving. So I say, they're getting up, right? It's by 8:59 and I start to get agitated. Why can't you just get up? You do realize that I'm coming to shul with you today? Why can't you just get up on time? My irritation grows, kids grumbling, and finally we get out to shul. At this point, mutual aggravation, and now none of us really in a davening mindset. And so it has happened again. My irritability, my desire for things being just so, has taken over. It made a shul moment with my kids and with God into a not-so-sacred moment. When I think about my irritability, I feel bad. I don't want this to be true about me. But at some point, I made a decision to really try to work on it. I wanted to change, to grow. It wasn't easy, but it was important, and it made a difference. In these moments that we have together before Yom Kippur, I want to focus on an aspect of our theme, Tikkun HaMidot, but in a specific way. I want to talk about ambition. Our SAR community is very ambitious. We have driven and hardworking students, driven and hardworking faculty, and driven and hardworking parents. We want to get good grades, do well on our SATs, ACTs, get into a good college, get a good job. We want to win our championship games, and we want to be popular with our friends. But I want to talk about a different kind of ambition. I'm going to call it character ambition. What I mean by character here, the moral and ethical qualities that are particular to who we are and how we live our lives. So character ambition means having ambition, a desire to develop our moral and ethical character in the best way, and putting in the planning and hard work that is necessary to achieve it. For me, in my story, and I shared with you my own story consciously because it feels important, it means cultivating patience so that I won't be so irritable. For you, it will mean something else. And in regard to this type of ambition, I want to make 2 claims to you today, just to start. My first claim is that while we are all nice people, and we all want to do the right thing, being nice is not enough. We want to be the very best possible versions of ourselves. My second claim is that sometimes we get a little lazy and forget to make choices that would help us become the people we want to be. If we want to grow, we need a plan. As I was preparing for this talk, Shoko shared a video with me, and I want to share with you just 30 seconds of that video from a guy named Drew Dudley, and he's talking about leadership. You can watch, 30 seconds.
Hope to have fun in our lives. I think that we all hope to be leaders. I think that we all hope to matter in this world. And hope's a wildly important force in our lives. It's something that we should foster in our own lives and in the lives of other people. But hope is actually a lousy strategy. I think if we want things in our lives, we can't just hope for them. We have to plan for them. I think we have to plan to have fun. I think we have to plan to be leaders. I think we have to plan to matter to other people in the world.
Drew Dudley is saying something so important and so memorable that hope is not a plan. We need to be more concrete. So far, the two claims I want to make to you. Number one, when it comes to character ambition, being nice isn't enough. And two, hope is not a plan. So how do you figure out a plan? How do we decide what to work on? The truth is that we have a long history of thought about this. The Torah has high character expectations for us. The Torah's mitzvot push so strongly for ethical and moral sensitivity. And I know what we tend to say. We're just being kids. That's what high school kids do. We're lazy, we don't plan, we don't think about these things. Our teachers give us too much work for us to think about character and about working on midot. And faculty will say, we are so busy doing the important things that we do that we don't have the luxury to think about attributes like tranquility and humility, anava, wasting time, charitzut, diligence. We need to believe that it's really important to think about these things. Having ambition means wanting to be better. We need to believe that we are not yet at our best, and we need the drive, the desire to be the best that we can be. Ambition, by definition, means never saying, I'm good enough. Maybe everybody else around me thinks that I'm okay, and in a lot of senses, I am okay. But I want to be the best that I want to be for me, and not just in terms of money, grades, job, but character. What kind of person am I? What kind of person am I becoming? The Rambam wrote in Shmona Prakim, the ancients maintained that the soul, like the body, is subject to good health and illness. I'm going to say that one more time. The Rambam said that the soul, like the body, you can talk about the soul as being healthy or sick, just like you can talk about the body as being healthy or sick. That is a very deep idea. Our inner beings can be healthy or ill, just like our bodies. Think about it. When it comes to my body, what people around me do is not necessarily what is good for me. It could be like we all eat poorly. That doesn't mean we should do it. It just means we do it. But we have to think about it and reconsider. The reality is people eat too much. They become unhealthy. I know it will make me physically unhealthy, so I should really stop doing it. People need to exercise their bodies, but they get lazy, so they don't. We know it'll help us live longer, healthier lives. We have to decide, make a plan, and figure out how to take care of our bodies. We need to think of our souls, our inner beings, in terms of health and sickness. In what ways are we healthy? In what ways are we not so healthy? What must I do to make myself as soulfully healthy as I can be? When it comes to character ambition, here's the point. If we take Tikkun HaMidot seriously, then it requires action and determination. I want to outline the beginnings of a path towards working on that. And I want to do that by taking that which we know. We know what hard work means when it comes to planning and hard work for grades, for our teams, for our applications. I want to apply those same strategies to our midot, to our most daily interactions with others, with Hashem, and within ourselves. All three. With others, with God, and with ourselves. So I share with you my 4 steps of character ambition. Number 1, set a practical goal. Think of what this looks like in regular school life. I actually think a lot. I see it, but then I kind of think about my kids writing an essay for class or for a college application, or making a decision that they want to make a certain team. So what does that look like? In those cases, there's a very concrete goal. So when you do it once, you write the essay, you play ball, you don't feel like, okay, done. You look at it again, assess what you've done, find out how it can be done better. Over the course of time, you get better and better at it. I've been amazed to watch my kids' essay writing or foul shooting improve in exactly that way. They do it, look at it, assess it, how can I do it better? Having a goal propels you forward. We should set goals for ourselves in midot and character growth in exactly that way. Pick a midah and work at it for a while. For me, my goal now is to seek menuchat hanefesh. That's actually one of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter's 13 midot, an inner peace, where I don't get quickly irritated if I'm talking to somebody. When I am in that zone, I don't really listen to others with patience. Sometimes I can speak to them in a disparaging way, as though they said something that's, wow, that's so dumb. I don't mean to do it. It just kind of comes when I'm in that mode. And I start to pay attention to it. Often it happens because I'm feeling bad about myself, or upset about something else, or angry at the other person because the other person didn't totally accept my point of view. And often it happens with the people who are closest to me. I actually think that this is one of the al-chetz. And I want to point to it because if you pay attention to the al-chetz and you really would think about it, it's not just, I sinned a lot, I sinned a lot, I sinned a lot, I sinned a lot. Actually, there are lines in there that are asking you to pay attention to real characteristics and look at yourself. There's a line that I didn't really think about so much before. A lates is a cynic. It translates as, for the sin that we sin before you by scorning others. I think that's what happens for me. And when I'm irritable in this way, I don't treat other people the way that I should. I fail myself, I fail other people, and the whole interaction becomes much less godly than it should be. But I need to be practical. I can't just have this as an idea. So I would say this: every time I become annoyed about getting to davening on time or not with my kids, every time I feel that sense that I'm somehow not a good enough Jew unless I get to minyan on time, find myself channeling that insecurity toward my children, I say to myself, take a breath. I'm okay. I might say it twice. Take a breath. I am okay. That might sound a little cheesy, but I just mean, it becomes a mantra. And it helps me because it's a concrete step I can take that gets me closer to my goal: patience, tranquility. And I ask you to do the same. What midah do you want to improve? What do you want to work on over the course of the next 6, 8, 12 weeks? And so my lesson, point number 1 is, set a goal for yourself. Number 2, get a coach. If I take the analogy further of what we do in school, when I pursue my goals and ambitions, if I really want to do my best, I get a coach. That's obviously true for sports. My coach points out to me, this is what you did well, and this is what you need to do to get better. That's also true in writing a paper or an application or preparing for the ACTs or working on a robot car for engineering. Or if you're in a play or you do an art, we always turn to the coach. How can you expect to learn how to do it better if you don't have anybody pointing out what you did and how you can do it better? The Baalei Musar were very clear on this point. They said, a rabbi, a chavruta, you need to have one to give you pointers. If I start getting irritable, my Rebbe should point it out to me, or I should try to unpack the moment with my midot chavruta, or my best friend, or my spouse, my parent. The Rambam was very serious about this. He saw a rabbi as a doctor of the soul. Literally, that's what he said. A Rav is a doctor of the soul. There are medical doctors for the body, and there are spiritual doctors for the soul. And the Greeks thought the same thing. It's hard to develop strategies on my own to teach myself to listen patiently all the time under all circumstances. And it's not enough to just do my best. Tikkun Amidot means working in earnest. And if we're serious about growth, we should get ourselves a coach. And I'm pretty sure, and this, I really mean this, and I wish, it'd be my prayer that you take it seriously. There's a building full of adults here who want nothing more. If you have something and you struggle with it, and you say, I would be better, I treat people better, my inner spirituality would be better, but I need to work on it, who do I feel like I can talk to in the building? If you're unsure whether it's okay, you should go over to the person. It's okay. Because there's a building full of people here on the Limudei Kodesh side and on the general study side who want to talk about these things. They want to do it themselves, and they want to work together, all of us together, to make it happen. Third, pay attention to detail. When we pay attention, when we learn about a midah and about ourselves, we begin to see the nuances that make all the difference. I want to try to give you an analogy. I don't know if this works. My point is, with this, sometimes we think we're okay, everything is fine. But when we start learning about something, we realize, the more we learn about it, the more we realize the nuances of what makes it really great. You know what it means, like if you write an essay, you can write, everybody can write a paragraph, but if you learn how to write, you kind of really learn how to write. At some point as a parent, this struck me with baseball. I hope that this can resonate with some people here. When I was a kid, I played baseball. I said, kid, you're a kid, you play baseball. So what did that mean? I was able to throw and I was able to bat, and so I played baseball. When my kids played Little League and I watched what it meant for somebody to actually be taught how to play, I realized that I had no idea. It was good enough, I could play, but I never understood why they do that weird motion that they do. What is that about? Because nobody ever taught me how to get my whole body into a pitch. That's the idea. How do you get your whole weight into a pitch? I could swing a bat and try to hit the ball, but I was never taught, and I didn't understand when you're swinging, how do they get it hit it so? It's you need to be able to do something to get your whole body into a swing. Nobody taught me how to do that. What's so striking to me now is, oh yeah, that's because I'm playing, have a good time, and that's good. But if you really want to be good, you start learning and paying attention, and if you start learning and paying attention, you realize the nuances of what it means to really be good at something and understand how to grow. We do that in other places, and I'm again advocating to pay attention to detail when it comes to these kinds of things as well. I'm going to go back to my own story. For myself, I began to notice that when I start to get annoyed, a lot of times it's connected to my feeling, as I said, bad about something. So I began to find other places where that same thing would happen. Working on this midah has actually made me experience davening and the idea of making brachot in a new way. I now find davening to be such a peaceful space carved out in the day to take a breath, to take stock, to recenter myself. And here again, when I started to do that, it impacted on my relationship in all three ways. My relationship with myself, my relationship with Hashem, my relationship with other people. When I somehow was able to do that mantra, I found myself going to shul with my kids, and I don't want to it wasn't like a disaster. I'm feeling like I'm saying this so many times that you're saying oh, gee, what was it like? It wasn't, but it's actually a very different experience. I go, and I'm like, this is a beautiful thing, to be with my kids, to be in front of God, to be at peace with myself, and that comes from paying attention to the details and learning how to do it the best. And finally, if you keep the analogy going, practice. I want to quote to you a line from the Rambam in Hilchot Deot. The Rambam says, this is a quote, the English translation quote, How can one train oneself to follow these temperaments to the extent that they become a permanent fixture of his personality? Should perform, repeat, and perform a third time the acts which conform to the standards of the middle road temperaments. He should do this constantly until these acts are easy for him, do not present any difficulty. Then these temperaments will become a fixed part of his personality. You hear that thing? We do it all the time. We just don't think we're supposed to do it around midot. That's like practice. You go to practice for your sports teams, you go to practice for art and drama, you got to practice midot. Rambam says so. When we're serious about it, you don't do it once. After I started working on it, I began to really enjoy all of these things in a much more profound kind of way. So, end of segment 2 is as follows. Here are my 4 steps. Set a practical goal. Get a coach. Pay attention to detail. And practice. And with this, I want to move to thy third piece, which will be the last. My goal was to give you a sense of what this might look like concretely. Right now, I want to ask you to do a little imagining. Can you imagine if every person in this building picked one midah to work on and actually did that, worked on it with a partner, with a coach? I don't want to overstate it. That means a friend. You go kind of talk to a teacher about something, speak to your parents, something. It doesn't mean something wrong with us. It just means I want to be as good as I can when it comes to this. And actually did it, using these kinds of steps. We would be a community of Ovdei Hashem. I mean, I can't imagine 650 people, each doing their own thing, working on this individually together. That would be pretty amazing. So in the spirit of thinking about that a little, I asked faculty members to share with me the midah that most inspired them and a role model who embodied it, just to get us going a little bit. So a bunch of faculty members responded, and I thank all of you for your responses, which I could not include all of, so I just took a couple. Here's what Mishlaf shared. When I think of Tikkun HaMidot, I think of someone I actually don't know well at all and of a very small act. And I want to highlight this idea of it being a very small act, because think about how something small can make a difference, especially when it's always there. Here's the story. From time to time, I'm quoting Mishlaf, I speak in my shul. I'm pretty used to public speaking, but no matter how many times I get up in front of an audience, it's always good to have a, quote, nodder, end quote. You know what that means? Like when I'm up here and there's a nodder, thank you guys, yeah. There's one person in the crowd who looks right at me when I'm speaking and smiles and nods. When I have one nodder in the audience, I feel perfectly fine about whatever I have to say. I'm going to stop for a second, because as somebody who speaks in front of people, crowds, I can't tell you, and I remember when it struck me early, kind of years ago, wow, there are midot to sitting in the audience? Because I remember when I was a rabbi of a shul, and there was a guy in the shul who would always have a sefer open when I was speaking. It was so distracting. He's a good guy, didn't mean anything by it. I had a sefer, figured I could do 2 things at once. I'm going to read and I'm going to listen. And at some point, this idea that Mishlaf is sharing struck me. It's actually, you can have midot just sitting in a room. There's an issue of good midot and not, because you're saying, I'm going to respect the person who's speaking, and that comes through not even by talking or not talking, just by eye contact. So Ms. Schlaf continues, I say good Shabbos to this woman every week without knowing her very well, but after the last time I spoke, I went over to her to thank her for always smiling when I speak, and to tell her how confident it makes me feel. I think it's also worth a shout out to Ms. Schlaf, who actually went over to the person and said, I just want to share with you the impact that you make on me when you do that, which we don't necessarily tend to do either. and how important that probably was for the other person. What she said totally amazed me. She said that a few years ago, she decided that anytime she heard anyone speak anywhere, she was going to make it her business to make them feel comfortable by making eye contact with the speaker and smiling and nodding. She said it was her small contribution to the world. What amazed me was that I had always thought it came naturally to her, something she did without thinking. I was so impressed to learn that that was a conscious decision. She had translated an interest in treating people with respect, a midah of kavod, into a very specific action. That's Mishlaf. Ms. Dweck shared something else. These are two tiers. Ms. Dweck's first response, the first part of what she said, and I sent out the email, so she responded, "Wow, that's a fascinating question to ponder. I posed it to my family, and each had the character trait that they respect and a person to speak of. At ages 6, 8, and 10, they have clear ideas of what they admire and why. Thank you for inspiring some great family conversation." That, by the way, is not the midah. Ms. Dweck then shared a midah, but I want to share what I think is Ms. Dweck's midah, because that is an amazing midah that she has, that you get an email and you might or might not have the time to pay attention to it. You respond, you read it, you don't read it, you respond, you don't respond. Ms. Dweck says, "Wow, how can I make this part of the kind of meaningful life of my family?" and brought it to the table of her with her kids. And they had a conversation about, well, what is actually the attribute that you find, and then says to me, "Thank you for offering the opportunity to me to have that conversation with my family." That is an amazing midah. That's not the midah that she shared, that's just her midah. What she shared, the role model, a toddler, learning to walk. That means she watches a toddler and says, wow. Why? Failure is part of the learning process, and perseverance, I believe, is the key to embracing the failure. When a toddler is learning to walk, it's a process. He or she falls many times, and each time he or she gets right back up and tries again and again and again. I wish we could bring this resilience with us into adolescence, adulthood, and beyond. We're born with perseverance. In our very first breath of life, we need to figure out how to manage in gravity. We don't give up, we persevere. I want to point out to you that another one of Rabbi Harcsztark's 13 midot is perseverance. This is a Jewish thing. I'm telling you Rabbi Harcsztark and Rambams and things like that because we actually believe as part of what the Torah is trying to teach these kinds of things. So thank you, Ms. Dweck. That's pretty awesome. I mentioned earlier how powerful it would be to have a school of 650 people all thinking about a personal midah, working to better themselves in a kind of shared project that was yet so individualized. So in this spirit, the last thing that I want to share with you is something that was in the newspaper this past Sunday. The guy's name is John Allman. John Allman is a principal of the Trinity School. The Trinity School is a 300-year-old high school in Manhattan, one of the oldest, most prestigious schools in Manhattan. He wrote a letter to his school community at the beginning of the school year. It was dated August 30th. They wrote it up in the Times recently, suggesting that they needed to rebuild the culture, that it has become too self-serving, too narrow, not enough about personal character and the greater good. I read you one paragraph. He wrote, "Consistent with our mission, how ought we to educate our students so that they leave us with a commitment not just to advance their own educational interests, but also serve the common good and to give generously to others for the rest of their lives. As we have learned in recent years, our students' default understanding of the purpose of their schoolwork becomes to make good grades, gain admission to a highly selective college, set themselves on a path of lifelong superior achievement. And this default setting, a narrowly individualistic, self-advancing goal, has been locked into place by a frenetic pace of life and expectations of perfection that devour the energy and time students need to reflect on the meaning of their schoolwork. We probably need to do a similar self-reflection. And I say it out loud to all of us as kind of a collective vidui that I think is really important. We need to actively, he writes, we need to actively develop in our students compelling alternative understandings of the socially redeeming purposes their knowledge and skills could and should serve. And if we do not, ... What he's saying is so fitting for this season for our school, for religious life, and it is this. If we take the idea of being a Jewish school seriously, then our goals have to extend beyond the academic to the ethical and the spiritual. We have to work at least as hard at bettering ourselves ethically and spiritually as we do at our classes. So I will end as I began. In our family, we have a minhag, as many do, of giving brachot to our kids right before we go to shul for kol nidre. It's in the machzor. It used to be a frazzled moment for me. Harried, Russian, always late, need to get to shul, make sure we're on time. There's always like stuff going on. It's no longer a frazzled moment. Calling everybody to get ready, hastily giving them brachot, rushing everyone out the door. I know that my family, Hashem, and my own neshama will be with me in peace as I, with menuchat hanefesh, bless my family as we pray for a blessed year together. In that spirit, I challenge you as you sit in shul on Yom Kippur, ask yourself, what is my midah? What is my real goal? Who can help coach me? Let me dedicate time to practice. Make Yom Kippur into a day that will affect real change in your life. Thank you for listening. Gmar Chatima Tova.